Good evening, good afternoon, good wherever you are. This is Saturday, and my dog's already going off, so I apologize. How is everybody doing out there? Hope you guys are doing well. It's been some time. I'm curious as to how everybody is doing this lovely Saturday morning and how you guys are handling the weather out there. Because if you live in Orlando right now, chances are you are getting flooded and you are getting surrounded by rain. And give me a second because my dog is going off. Hold on one second, guys. Sorry. Hey, come here. Come here. Oh, apologies. Apologies. It seems like she gets like this every single time I try to do a live stream. I don't know what it is. Hey, Jesse. Hey, good morning. Good morning. I know this is kind of a real weird time to do a live stream for a lot of you out there. It is Saturday morning and it's 10 o'clock in the morning. And everybody's kind of just getting ready and getting going for the day. So probably won't have too many people on, but I do have a few questions to answer, so I will get to those right away. First things first, I love you guys, patrons. Thank you so much for your subscriptions, and you help keep the channel going. I will be on more of a regular basis as far as content within the next week. It's just been a crazy set of few weeks with work, with personal life, and things like that. So first question, Omar94. Hey, Lewis, do you think comic characters like the Marvel and DC ones will have definitive ends and that the comic series finally ends in their stories, not runs from writers, but their whole stories are completed? I think I answered this a few weeks ago, pal. The only time I think that has happened was, yeah, I did answer this. In short, that'll never happen. Like, there will always be, as long as there is a DC Comics, there will always be a Batman story. There will always be a Superman story. There will always be a Green Lantern or something like that. Definitive end, unless the company tanks and goes under, that ain't happening anytime soon. And you know, with the situation going on with DC Comics right now, you never know. Because man, DC Comics, it seems like DC Comics is in kind of a rough shape right now in terms of sales and expectations and stuff like that. They are in an interesting place right now. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, a lot of restructuring. We've seen it from the collected editions department. They just can't seem to get that shit together. They'll have books that are solicited 1 month, and then the next month it's like, no, we're canceling the solicitation, and that's not coming out. We saw it with the Jonah Hex Omnibus, which I think it got relisted and named something else. We were supposed to get a Jonah Hex Bronze Age Omnibus, if I'm not mistaken. That was announced, and that was canceled, like within the span of a few months. And then we saw Swamp Thing, it got canceled, then resolicited, then delayed another month, and it just seems like they're kind of struggling right now. So I hope they get it together. It would really stink for them to like not be around in any shape or form, or that DC Comics won't be around. I'm nervous of that. That would really suck, and that would really hurt the industry as a whole. That would hurt mom and pop shops. Like, that would tank a lot of mom and pop shops if DC Comics went away in a big way. Yeah, the thing is with digital, it's so much easier, man. Jesse, saying makes me want to go digital. The thing is with digital is the digital comics are so much easier. They're more convenient. I don't have to do the weekly trek, even though I do kind of miss going to my comic shop every week. But it's just a matter for me of convenience where midnight hits and everything starts downloading on my tablet. I'm like, all right, cool. I got the new Jonathan Hickman book, or I've got the new Scott Snyder comic, or I got the new Black Hammer comic or something like that. And it's like that. So it's really convenient for me, and as somebody who my time is very precious and my time is very limited, considering all the different things going on in my life and all the different things that I have to deal with on a daily basis, me going after work and traveling about 30 minutes out of my way to a comic shop to pick up my weekly books is just not feasible for me anymore. It just doesn't work for me, and that time could be better spent elsewhere. And to be honest with you, I get out of work and I'm tired. I get out of work around 4:30. And I just want to get home at that point. I want to get home, go to the gym, cook dinner, and just kind of relax and do my thing. But yeah, so that's part of the reason why that's part of the reason why I'm such a heavy proponent on digital comics, and part of the reason why I think that digital is the future. It's just ease of convenience. It's a lot easier for a lot of people. Plus, it looks better in the grand scheme of things. When you think about it, when the stigma with comic books has gotten a lot better over the last few years in terms of, hey, comics are really popular right now. The geek culture is really in the mainstream in the mainstream media. But at the same time, if you're bringing home a girl and this is the first time that you've taken her home or anything like that, and this is the first time you're seeing her, and she comes home and you've got like 30 long boxes sitting in your living room or sitting in your bedroom or something like that, it can kind of look pretty bad. I mean, depends on how you organize it. Some people are a lot better at organizing stuff like that, and they make it work. They make it work for the space that they're in. But yeah, so it's just easier. You pull out a tablet, you got everything you need, and you can just go, okay, well, I want to read Dark Knight. Okay, Dark Knight's right there. I'm there. Rather than having to dig through a shelf full of books and try to hunt down whatever you've got, and then the organizing and moving is the biggest. Let me tell you something out there. If you are somebody that collects collected editions, you will testify to this. If you have any experience having to haul all of these different comics and having to haul all these different books and long boxes and different omnibuses and absolute editions from house to house, especially if you rent, is a pain in the ass. It's a huge pain in the ass. It's so difficult and it's so annoying, man. It really is. It's just the biggest pack up the ass to have to do all that stuff every single year. Ugh. Speaking of DC troubles, are Didio and Harris the causes? It's hard to say, man. I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes 100%. I don't think anybody really knows what's going on 100% what's going on behind the scenes, except for Didio, Harris, and like the higher ups at DC Comics. I will say that ever since the AT&T merger, when they bought out Warner Brothers and all that other stuff, it's been kind of shaky for DC Comics. It seems like they haven't been stable. They haven't been as stable as much as they used to be, and it kind of seems like Warner Brothers and AT&T, who is their parent company, are just trying to figure out what the hell do we do with this comic division. We know that the movies are huge. We know comic book movies are huge. So we want to keep those IPs. We want to keep the comic stuff. But well, the comics aren't really selling that much. They're not really like a huge go-getter, and they're not really this huge thing that people are rushing out to buy in stores. And what's really interesting right now is in the US market, what's taking off is manga. Manga is taking off in a huge way in the US market, an insane way. And I see it at my job because I work with kids. The kids at my job, they're not reading Batman, Superman, and Aquaman and Wonder Woman. No. They're not reading that stuff. They aren't reading the newest Scott Snyder comic. They're not reading the newest Jeff Lemire comic. What they're reading is My Hero Academia. They're reading Boruto. They're reading Demon Slayer. They're reading manga, and a lot of it. Like it's insane how much manga has just taken over the West in terms of comics over the last few years. Like me growing up in the mid 2000s and the 90s, you would see manga like every once in a while and stuff like that. Manga, the kid's into manga. Okay, whatever. He's kind of into weird shit, whatever. But it's very commonplace right now, and it's fascinating from a perspective of is Western comics dying? Are they dying in the sense that it's an old guy's medium? It's a medium for guys who, like me, are in their 30s and guys and above, and maybe even in their 20s. And the teenagers and the kids coming up, they're into manga. That's their thing. Their Superman is Deku, is All Might. My mistake. Their Superman is All Might. Their let's see. Their Wonder Woman is one of the popular female. I don't even know right now. Like one of the popular female manga characters. Their Aquaman is Naruto or something like that. It's really interesting, and it's kind of, it makes me a little bit nervous for the future of Western comics as a whole. Plus, you might be dig the 12-inch iPad. True. Hey guys, just arrived now. Any comments on the Man of Steel omnibus? Yeah, we've so there it was officially announced we are getting a John Byrne Man of Steel omnibus. Thank goodness. I know a lot of you out there have been clamoring for a John Byrne Man of Steel omnibus. I'm actually one of them. I really am excited to see how that comes together. Look, I am digital for the most part, but there are a few books, Absolute Swamp Thing being one of them, that I will pony up the hard-earned cash for a collected edition of it. And a John Byrne omnibus of Superman is hands down one of them. Like I'm day one for me. I'm picking that up, and it's about goddamn time. In my opinion, manga is relatively easier to collect and brings fresh ideas when a lot of Western comics feel samey. I don't think they're dying, but definitely in need of a shakeup. That's a good perspective. And the thing is that for manga, it's way easier to collect. It really is when you think about it. Because I can tell, let's say, my brother, who he doesn't really read manga. He's not really into it. It's cool. I can tell him, he asked me, okay, I want to start reading One Piece. Huge undertaking. There's like 80 plus volumes at this point. Almost 90, I think, if not 90. I can tell him, all right, man, you want to read One Piece? Perfectly fine. Pick up volume 1 of One Piece and you start and you go all the way through. No problem. Just pick up volume 1 and all you have to do is go through that. If somebody tells me, hey, I want to read Thor. Holy shit. Okay, well, you could start with the Walt Simonson run, which is obviously a really classic run, and it does a lot of things. You know, you get a lot of stuff with Malekith, and it's very cosmic. Or you could do a modern-day run where you could go Jason Aaron, and you could do his Thor run, but then you got to understand that he, halfway through that, a third, not even halfway, probably like 25% into the run, Jane Foster takes over the hammer, and then Jane Foster becomes female Thor, and then there's 2 Thor titles, and then you got to read this, and then there's this tie-in, and then there's this event that came into it, and you have to read that, because if not, you're going to be a little bit lost. That's where it is. It's super fucking difficult now. And they are shooting themselves in the foot, I think, in a sense, but that's kind of also the nature of it. Because comics haven't changed in forever. They really haven't. It's always been Superman issue 1 through whatever. And then every once in a while you'll get like a Superman versus the Klan, which just came out this week, which is, you know, you could jump in here and that's perfectly fine. But for somebody who is new and going into a comic shop the first time and they see 8 different Superman titles on the fucking wall, or they see 8 different Batman titles on the fucking wall, it's gonna be intimidating and it's gonna be a pain in the ass. You know? And then there's also the cost factor when you think about it. If I'm a parent, I'm not a parent, thank the Lord for right now. If I'm a parent and I am very cost effective with my money is a little bit tight and stuff like that, and I take my kid to a comic shop and I go, hey, you know, my son's really wanting to read something interesting, like what can you give me? Here is a $24 Green Lantern hardcover that has 10 issues, 12 if you're lucky at best. My kid is going to fly through that within 2 to 3 hours. If he's a good reader, he's going to fly through it. Now I can go into the same shop and go, okay, my kid really likes anime. He likes One Piece and he likes all this other stuff. Where can I start? Okay, cool. Pick up a 3-in-1, which has 3 volumes of One Piece for like $15. What am I going to go with? Yes, the paper quality is cheap, but for the most part, it's a kid. They're not going to give a shit. They just want to read it and they want to look at the pictures. What am I going to go with if I'm a cost-effective parent? I'm going to go with the manga because it makes more sense. It's 3 volumes. He's going to take longer to read it, and it's cheaper. So there's a lot of stuff that I think needs to be reevaluated in terms of just collected editions as a whole and in terms of the comic book industry as a whole. And I think a lot of it is them shooting themselves in the fucking foot. I really do. With these events and with these restarts and whatever the fuck DC 5G is that's coming up in a few months. Like, stop. You need to make it easier for your audience to buy stuff. And that was the thing that was shooting Marvel in the foot a few years ago, where they would have a new #1 every goddamn week. Every few months, a title would get restarted, and they were trying to recapture an audience that they just were not recapturing, and they were just making everything so much more convenient. goodness, it's kind of annoying. I really think, honestly, that just as a whole, Marvel and DC should scale back just a little bit. Just a little bit. Instead of having 8 Batman titles on the stand, maybe just have 3. Make it easier for your audience to pick one up. Just scale back. Let's see. Hey man, do you know what's going on at Archie Horror? Why hasn't Afterlife with Archie, Betty, RIP come out yet? I saw your video on Afterlife with Archie and I really liked it and would love to continue. This was actually a question that you asked earlier. I apologize, I'm getting to questions now. I don't know what's going on. I loved Afterlife with Archie, but it's been on hiatus for years. And Afterlife with Archie was so good. When it first came out, it was a top book. People were really talking about it. And they haven't done anything with it. I mean, there's been a few spinoffs like Sabrina and stuff like that, but I'm not really interested in Sabrina. I want to read Archie. I want to read Afterlife with Archie. You know? So that's kind of disappointing. Yeah. Again, Maseo Gray. Perfect example. Manga also just has one writer most of the time. Yes, you do have your spin-off titles like with My Hero Academia where there's vigilantes, and that's a different writer. But for the most part, it's been Oda. Oda-san has been doing One Piece for goddamn near 30 years, and it's just been him. That's it. You know, him and his studio and the people he works with. And that is it. Okay? So that makes it a lot easier too as well. But that's kind of the nature of the beast for Western comics. It's just you can't have the same writer on Batman for 30 plus years. That's just the nature of the beast, man. One of the reasons I stopped keeping up with single issues is how expensive they become. You still get a lot of ads, and with a lot of them, the quality is a roll of the dice. Very true. Yes, very, very true. You know, it's very expensive to keep up with them. Okay, again, let's go back to the manga versus Western comics comparison. I know a lot of you are probably going to hate this because a lot of you are just purely Western comics, and that's perfectly fine. But this does need to be a discussion that needs to be had. So, digital. I can spend $4 for a 22 to 30 page comic, right? Not that much money, but it adds up when you've got a pull list. You've got 5, 6 titles. Before you know it, you're $30 in the hole every single week. 3 weeks, you're spending $90 a month on comics. For just a handful of titles. Not even that many titles. Let's say 15, 20 comics a month. Let's say, right? Or I can spend $1.99 and get the Shonen Jump app. And I get the entirety of My Hero Academia. I get One Piece. I get Tokyo Ghoul. I get all these different comics. I get all these really cool mangas for $1.99 a month. And they update it with the newest ones every single week. That is insane. That is nuts. So it's again, it's an example of manga is just outdoing Western comics in terms of affordability, in terms of, in some ways, creativity, and in terms of convenience. They really are. And that is why we have such an influx now of manga readers and kids growing up reading the newest issue of the newest volume of My Hero Academia, or the newest volume of Demon Slayer, or the newest volume of Boruto, because of those 3 things. It's convenient, it's cheap, and they're easily accessible. So this may sound insane, but how about actually aging the characters? It may get new readers. Well, they've tried that. Remember a few years ago that this was years and years ago, before Brand New Day, Peter Parker got married. He married Mary Jane. He had a great job and all this. And then they fucked it all up because I really think they still believe that mindset that nobody wants to read an older Batman. I think that's their mindset, that young kids do not want to read an older Batman, that they don't want to read an older Superman, that they don't want to read a Green Lantern and stuff like that. Guys, they have to start realizing that they have to balance out a new generation of kids that are coming up, and they are not reading physical media. They are not. They are digital, 100% digital. That's their platform. Manga is embracing this a lot more than Western comics are. And that's in part because of the mom and pop shops that are out there right now. That Marvel and DC are scared that if they pull out, that is going to kill the smaller mom and pop shops. It is going to kill them in a big way, and a lot of fucking people are going to lose their jobs. A lot of people. You're talking about Diamond. You're talking about people all over the world that still have these small shops that depend on the monthly grind. If they pull out and they say we are going digital exclusive, which I really don't think will ever happen, 100%. I'll get to that in a minute. It will kill the mom and pop shops of the world. And it'll be a sad day when that happens, but I think that is the future. I honestly think my opinion of what the future is the TKO Comics model. And if you haven't seen it, TKO Comics, their model is essentially every few months we are putting out a trade paperback. We're putting out 6 issues of that trade paperback, and we're putting out a collected box edition of those 6 issues. And they all come out at the same time. You can choose what you want, but they don't do the monthly grind. And on top of that, they offer all that stuff for digital. That to me is really the future of this, where you're going to have the collected editions and they'll be sold through Amazon, and you'll have your comic shops that still have them, but I think the monthly grind for Western comics is going to go away. I think it is. I really do. This is obviously far off, and I don't think it's anytime soon that it's going to happen, but I think that's where we're headed. I really do. And of course you're going to have shops like specialty shops like Gabe's comic shop, Torpedo Comics, where they cater to a specific audience, and they have a lot of back issues, and they have a lot of really rare stuff. You're going to have those shops that are still around, but those are going to be more of your niche shops. Those are going to be your shops where, man, I really want to check out an old comic book shop, and those aren't around anymore. It's kind of like barcades, where arcades had to evolve in order to stay alive. You don't see a regular arcade, at least not here in Florida. You don't see just a regular arcade anymore. You see barcades where people go out at night and they go drinking, and they have bars, and they have free machines all over the place. And I think that's really where the future of mom and pop shop comics are going to go, where you're going to have kind of like that specialty boutique place where they have like a coffee shop inside there, and they have collected editions, and they sell collected editions, and you have maybe like a bar there or something like that where you can pick stuff off a wall, and they have game night where they have tabletops and stuff like that. I think that is really where we're headed in terms of the comic book collecting traditional store. And I think some of the smaller mom and pop shops that haven't evolved or aren't evolving are going to get thrown by the wayside. And unfortunately, they're going to be shut down. It sucks, but it's the nature of the beast. If DC 5G is like all new, all different Marvel, isn't that a good thing? More diversity, the better than the tired old heroes, and was the best era for Marvel, in my opinion. I was actually not a fan of the all new, all different Marvel stuff. Just wasn't my cup of tea. I think it was just got too convoluted towards the end of the renumbering and having to restart every few months a new #1 of the same fucking comic. It just got too confusing for my taste. I'm an old school guy though. It didn't work for me. Let's get to some of the other questions because I've been dilly-dallying. What upcoming video game are you most excited for? For me, it's the Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm super excited for Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk is my most anticipated game of next year. I'm cautiously optimistic for Death Stranding. We'll see how that turns out. But Cyberpunk is my jam, man. Yeah, the new Cyberpunk is definitely what I'm most excited about. What do you think is the next Michael Kunin? What do you think is the next Vertigo series to get the Omnibus / absolute treatment? I think the next one is, and it was announced actually. It's funny that you asked me that. It's actually Fables. Fables is getting an absolute edition. Fables of all things is getting an absolute edition. And Fables, here's the thing. Fables isn't even that. Fables is a big run. That's like over 120 comics. I don't think they're actually going to get through and collect the entirety of the damn thing. I really don't. especially with how shaky DC's collecting DC's recent collecting habits have been. I think Fables, the absolute edition of Fables, will be probably 1, maybe 2, and done, and that'll be it. Honestly, I don't see them getting through all the way with Fables, if it even comes out. I will be. You know what? I'll do this. I will be shocked. I'm giving this a 30% chance that this comes out. I will be extremely shocked if Absolute Fables Volume 1 even comes out. I'm giving it honestly like a 30%. Because if you can't sell Alan Moore's Swamp Thing and you had to resolicit that for whatever reason, then you really think a niche Vertigo comic is going to sell in terms of absolutes? I don't know. I love Fables. Don't get me wrong. I love Fables. But an absolute edition of Fables, I just don't see that selling. You know? I really don't. And a Man of Steel John Byrne omnibus, I see that selling. But my question is, why not go the omnibus treatment for Fables? Why not? You could put 60 issues of Fables or however it is, you cut it in half, and you've got 2 editions. You get, camera's over there. You get 2 omnibus editions. And that's it. You've collected the entirety of Fables, and then you could do maybe like a spin-off omnibus where you get Jack of Fables and all those other little titles and stuff like that were around at the time. But a collected editions of Fables, I don't know. I don't know about that. Not sure if you do many movie questions, but how should Hellboy be adapted in the future? Television, Netflix series, another film. The most recent attempt was sadly a failure critically. It was horrible. It was terrible. Due to studio and producer interference, and the director also, there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. And commercially, how does a big rig guy get onto a different medium? Okay. So I've actually been thinking about this. Netflix has first dibs at anything Dark Horse puts out in terms of like films and in terms of content and stuff like that. They have first dibs. So they have first look exclusives or whatever it's called. You start out with a BPRD series. Start with BPRD. And you don't even need to have Hellboy in it. You focus on Abe, you focus on all the side characters, Roger the Homunculus, you can bring all those characters in, and you just focus on them, and you do the first few volumes of Plague of Frogs. That is your first season. Later on, you can bring in Hellboy, and they can even tease in Hellboy, like, oh, where's Hellboy? Oh, he quit. Or because he does quit in the comics, he leaves the BPRD early on. Oh, he quit. He doesn't want to be here. We don't talk about that. And that's how you address that. And then later on, maybe a few seasons down the road, if you want to bring in Big Red, you can. But the Hellboy license, because of how terrible that film was, is kind of a little bit tainted. Just a little bit. It also has the advantage that most people didn't go see the fucking movie because most people were savvy enough to go, yeah, this doesn't look good. This looks like shit. And the Del Toro films have developed in the last few years a cult-like following. They are loved. Those Del Toro films are loved among a lot of comic book fans and among a lot of fans. It's kind of interesting because those 2 Hellboy films they didn't blow up the box office. They weren't a huge box office boom. I think they did okay. They did modest, certainly enough to get a second film underway. But they weren't this huge megaton success. But they still have a dedicated and loving following. And I really think had they because a lot of it was due to money. My understanding of it was that Del Toro, this was years ago, so things might have changed from what we've heard or not. But Del Toro wanted to make a $150 million Hellboy movie because that's the budget he needed to tell the story that he wanted to tell and end his trilogy. The studio said, no, we are not giving you $150 million to do a Hellboy movie when Hellboy really hasn't grossed that much for us. And then they went back and forth for a while and da-da-da-da. It's kind of a shame. But if they did, if the studio said right now, they announced, okay, we talked to Del Toro, he's got an open slate, We're gonna give them the budget he needs, and he's coming back and he's doing the third Hellboy movie. Ron Perlman is coming back. I doubt he would do the costume again. It would have to be CGI. And with the advances of CGI, you could do a pretty fucking good looking Hellboy. I mean, hell, we've seen it with Thanos. If you get something along those lines, you can sell a digital Hellboy. He's probably going to look a little bit different. Whatever. You could relate it to something else. So that to me, it would have been more successful than what they put out. And you got to understand, like, Hellboy is a property that it has a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential there for it to do so much more. And Del Toro was coming off of an Oscar win. He won an Oscar for Shape of Water. And the studio didn't think, maybe we should try and reach out to this guy who just won a fucking Oscar and he's got a lot of heat behind him right now. And maybe we should pony up a little bit of cash and see if he could do the third Hellboy movie that he wants to do, you know? Because Perlman's got to be in his, late 60s? So he's not going to do the prosthetic thing. It's not going to happen. He's not going to go through all that shit and stuff like that and then work out and get in decent shape and da-da-da-da-da. He won't do it, which I don't blame him because I wouldn't do that shit either. But you CGI him, you could do that. Yeah, you put on the little suit, the little balls or whatever it is. Maybe he doesn't even have to do the mocap. You can have somebody else do the mocap and he does the voice, and that would work. Speaking of Dark Horse, how about those Berserk Deluxe editions? I only wish they come out quicker. Those Berserk Deluxe editions are sweet. Those things are beautiful. They are so fucking gorgeous. Oh my god, they really are. They are a thing of beauty, and I love those Berserk Deluxe editions. Even though I don't have them, but I've seen photos of them, and I want them on my shelves. I'm like, oh my god. I don't know if you were asked this, but could you do a spoiler-free review of X-Men #1? I haven't read X-Men #1. I still haven't done it. I need to sit down with it. Sorry. Is Lobster Johnson, Baltimore, and/or Witchfinder worth reading? Depends on what you're into. Lobster Johnson is more of a pulp superhero comic where it's kind of along the lines of The Rocketeer, and he goes around and he deals with like Nazis and he deals around with like somewhat paranormal stuff and things like that, but it's more pulp action. If you're into stuff like The Rocketeer, Lobster Johnson will be your bag. Baltimore is more of a straight up vampire hunter, Van Helsing type story where you've got a guy who he is taking revenge and he's hunting down demons, he's hunting down vampires, and he is just out for blood. And Baltimore is really fucking good. It's really a lot of fun. I recommend you check out Baltimore if you haven't. I dig it a lot. Witchfinder is Victorian era where you've got a guy who he solves paranormal cases. It's kind of like a little bit of a mystery book and things like that. And that's what I love. That's what I love about the Hellboy universe in general, where every single thing is kind of it's got its own little bent to it. It's got its own little twist, and it's pretty cool to see just what they can do with it. And I dig that a lot. So I recommend that. Is Volume 3 of Berserk out next week? Let me take a look at my sources. Is that what you're saying, Volume 3 of Berserk? Is Q&A on Saturdays now? Q&A is on Fridays for the most part. Q&A will be on Fridays for the most part. It's just my schedule is completely, it's just nasty right now. It's ridiculous. Let's look at some other stuff. What comic runs do you want to get the Omnibus treatment the most? This is by Hubba Pasecki? I'm terrible with last names, sorry. Well, obviously the one that I was going to say was the John Byrne Superman run, and I'm so happy it's getting collected. Oh my god, it's about damn time. It really is about damn time. So happy. That needed to be collected a long time ago. Preacher Omnibus coming out in July, and I'm thinking Transmetropolitan will be next. That would be the obvious next move to collector. Yeah, but get the Preacher Omnibus out, and then we would have the Transmetropolitan Omnibus after that. And I think Transmetropolitan is going to be one of those series where it's only a matter of time where Transmet gets adapted into some shape or form. I think it was announced that they were trying to adapt it a few years ago, but it never really took, or it never really went anywhere, if I'm not mistaken. But I'm like 90% sure that Transmet is in some way, shape, or form being adapted. What happened to that Why the Last Man series? When that Why the Last Man series was in production, wasn't it? I could have swore it was. Like, they've released images and stuff like that, but it doesn't seem like it's gone anywhere, or there's been no word on it over the last few months. And I'm kind of curious as to, is that dead in the water? Is that still coming out? Are they still doing with it? It was going to be FX, wasn't it? Why the Last Man was FX. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Why the Last Man was FX. Lock and Key. Lock and Key was Netflix. So, don't know. Kelly Sue DeConnick's Captain Marvel run should be collected in Omnibus. I'm not a fan of Kelly Sue DeConnick's writing. Sorry, man. But I do agree that I think that would be an obvious choice for a collected edition. There's still a lot of fans out there that they do dig that run, and they like her writing. Not for me. But I think that would be a very wise choice from their collected edition department, especially with how much buzz Captain Marvel has right now, coming out of the movie and coming out of all that other stuff that has been happening over the last few months. But yeah, that's my dog. Actually, I have to get going within the next few minutes. Kind of stacked for time today. It's kind of a busy day. So what I'm going to do is, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to try this again on Friday next week. It might be Saturday. It's just, actually, let me know in the comment section what day works better for you guys, Friday or Saturday morning. I'm actually free most of the time for both. Just my schedule's been busy. So look out for content this week. It's been a super busy last few weeks. We're kind of ramping up into the paperwork season of my job. So this is kind of the busiest time of the year for me. But yeah, look out for that stuff. And I love you guys. Duck Collector 100%. Yes, before I get out of here. Yes, 100%. If you have not read Southern Bastards, you what are you doing? Like, what are you fucking doing, man? Get out there with if you would all respect my opinion on comics, you need to read the first volumes that are out of Southern Bastards, because they are, oh my God, incredible writing. 100%. Without a doubt. Like, pick those up right now. But yeah, thanks guys so much for joining me. Let me know in the comment section what's easier for you guys, if Saturday mornings works better for you. And of course, I love hearing back from you. I'll speak with you soon. Bye. 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 Bye.